Chapter 1532. Yun-Hu placed his glass down nonchalantly as though he didn't see through his thoughts. He casually asked, "What's in the bag of the photo you posted in your moments?" Lin Feng paused. Why did Yun-Hu have to talk about this topic? Nothing much, just drinking. Yun-Hu lifted his eyelids when he heard this. He looked at the person's erratic gaze. It seemed like the thing in the bag was the main point. But what exactly was it that made him so abnormal? Even Yun-Hu, who had a calm mind, couldn't figure out what Lin Feng was thinking. After all, Lin Feng was indeed too straight sometimes. The two of them sat on opposite sides of the dining table. They ate absent-mindedly. Lin Feng kept wondering why this guy wasn't drunk yet. He had already drunk 5 glasses of water. It would be too much if he did any more tricks. Most importantly, it was a little too quiet. The quieter it was, the more guilty Lin Feng felt. He stood up. "I'm going to the washroom." He had drunk so much water. He had to take a stroll inside. It was probably a coincidence. The moment Lin Feng entered, his phone rang. Yun-Hu held his glass with one hand. When he glanced at the caller ID on the screen, his gaze deepened. Are the two of them still in contact? However, that was unavoidable. After all, his role in the Lin family was to teach Lin Feng some things. But even though his rationality told him that was the case, he couldn't accept it emotionally. Sometimes, Yun-Hu questioned himself. Was his possessiveness too strong? But it was fine if he didn't have any thoughts about someone. But once he knew that the other party had thoughts about him. Just like the girl in high school who would blush whenever he pulled her braid. Yun-Hu's heart would always feel uncomfortable. At that time, the only solution he could think of was to divert the girl's attention. That was why he chased after her. It was a joke. But at that age, at an age where he couldn't say anything, he did it. In the end, the girl finally agreed to be with him. Yun-Hu could clearly see that the person was stunned. He used his fist to bump his shoulder. "Not bad, brother." Yun-Hu still remembered what he had said. "Don't blame me." That person didn't seem to understand. "Strange, why?" "I can tell that you have feelings for her," Yun-Hu said. At that time, he had been a little scheming. That person rubbed the back of his head and grabbed a handful of hair. "Seriously, I do have a good impression of her, but she chose you. Moreover, it's just a good impression. I don't think too much about it. I'm just thinking about how to win the competition." After hearing what he said, he quickly broke up with the girl. No matter what she asked for, he basically satisfied the girl. He was indeed a scumbag. However, this kind of thing seemed to be consensual. The girl took a few bags from him and asked him to tell everyone that he was the one who had been dumped. It didn't matter who Yun-Hu dumped. In the end, he didn't expect to receive such benefits. It was a comfort from that person. Just like today, he had prepared wine and dishes. Patting him on the shoulder, he started drinking. "There are plenty of women out there. She broke up with you because she didn't have the fortune." After saying these words, the man got drunk. Chapter 1533. It was also that kiss. It made Yun-Hu wonder if there was something wrong with him. If there wasn't something wrong with him, why would he have such thoughts towards a guy who was also a guy? For the entire night, his dreams were filled with his face. Yet that guy knew nothing about all of this. The next day, he was still wondering if he had fallen down there. If not, why would his head hurt so much? Ever since then, it wasn't that he didn't want to distance himself from him. He just wanted to find the problem and solve it. But that guy thought he was in a bad mood after breaking up. To this person, he didn't seem to have a solution from the start. At first, he thought things would get better after they got together. But a certain someone didn't seem to be that aware. That was why there were so many opportunities for people to get close to him. Yun-Hu watched as the screen darkened and lit up again. He reached out and picked up his phone. He walked to the bathroom. "Your phone keeps ringing." Lin Feng liked to wash his hands whenever he was nervous. He was turning on the water and thinking about how to put someone down when he heard Yun-Hu's voice. He used force and the water flow became much bigger. "Phone? Help me answer it." "MH," Yun-Hu replied. That was what he said. Without hesitation, he brought the phone to his ear. "Hello." The voice was low and he could hear the flipping of the contract. "Are you free?" Let's have dinner and talk about the project. Yunhu wasn't in a hurry. He waited for the other party to finish before speaking. Sorry, it's not him. He's in the bathroom now and it's not convenient for him to answer the phone. There was an obvious pause. Young Master Yun? It's me. Yun, who didn't mind revealing his identity in front of the other party, especially at such a time. The other party smiled and was very gentlemanly. Is he washing his hands in the bathroom at this hour? Yun, who narrowed his eyes. Because the other party had guessed correctly, the color in his eyes deepened. Just how heartless was that fellow? That was why he let an outsider know his habits. Yun, who glanced up, not surprised. No, he's showering. This time, there was a long pause on the other end of the phone. Then it really isn't convenient for him to answer my call. When he comes out, I'll have to trouble young Master Yun to ask him to return my call. All right. Yun, whose voice was still cold. In fact, he had the urge to smash his phone. He wanted to see how that guy was going to return the call if he smashed his phone. However, it was just a thought. Yun, who hung up. He wanted to return the phone to a certain someone. But when his gaze fell, he retracted his outstretched hand. How do you attack someone taller than you? The basic elements of being on the offensive. What are the specific steps of the attack? Let me share with you how I got my boyfriend. Yun, who scrolled down the list and finally landed on a point. Decide on the location, starting today. Yun, whose fingers paused, and the color of his eyes changed completely. Could that be the meaning behind what that guy posted on his moments? No wonder she always let him drink. She wanted him to get drunk and do something to him. Yun, whose hand was still there, but there was an obvious smile on his lips. On the other side, Lin Feng finally wiped the water off his body. The moment he came out, he saw Yun, who holding his phone, previewing a page. Wait, page. Preview. Chapter 1534. Lin Feng didn't seem to have any hesitation. He snatched the phone from Yun, whose hand in an instant. The more he tried to cover it up, the more obvious it was. Yun, who lifted his eyelids, his deep eyes looking at the person standing opposite him. From the looks of it, it was true. This guy wanted to push him down? Lin Feng coughed softly under that gaze and began to forcefully explain. I'm just checking. After all, I already have a boyfriend. I have to know the process in advance, right? Not everyone has my spirit of learning without limits. Yun, who had every reason to believe that he had started to spout nonsense out of guilt since he could use endless learning in this situation. If you really want to know the process, I can teach you. Yun, who walked over. When he approached him, he could smell the faint scent of alcohol on his body. It mixed with his original scent, and for some reason, it smelled even better. But even so, Lin Feng still felt a sense of danger. I don't need you to teach me, I already know it. What a joke. Did he still think he was a newbie who could be easily tricked? He had already communicated with others. Under normal circumstances, if someone offered to teach you the process, don't agree. There was a high possibility that you would end up being the one being suppressed while enjoying it. He still understood this point. Really? You know it? Yun, who moved closer. Do you want to try it on me? Of course. He came to him voluntarily. It had to be said that Yun, who was really self-aware. Lin Feng smiled, placing his hand on his shoulder like a good brother. You also think it's time for us to split up, right? Yun, who didn't feel anything wrong with their brotherly interaction. After all, he was a man, he shouldn't be shy. Yes, it's time to split up. Yun, who followed his words. When he glanced sideways, his gaze was a little deep. In the past, he had never thought that something would happen so soon. Because of Lin Feng's straightforwardness, he was afraid of messing things up. But now, it seemed like Lin Feng wasn't that resistant. If he couldn't even make use of this opportunity, what other opportunities would there be in the future? He had wanted to make him his for a long time. With that in mind, Yun, whose gaze deepened and he shifted. But I need to go down to buy something. At this moment, Lin Feng felt that he had great foresight. No need, I've already bought them. Are you done? Yun, who arched a brow. Lin Feng felt that it wasn't a bad thing for the other party to know his thoughts. This was how a man should be. There was nothing shameful about deciding his position. He really had too many concerns in the past. Now that he had thought it through, he placed the bag in front of Yunhu. It's all here, it's complete. Yunhu glanced at the bag. He basically recognized everything inside. After all, he had searched through all the things that Lin Feng had searched through when he was still in school. Ever since he had fallen in love with someone, some thoughts had never stopped. She really didn't expect him to post these things on his WeChat moments. And she said that she was just searching for him in advance, and that she didn't have any thoughts about him. Chapter 1535. Not bad. Yunhu flipped through the bag casually, many thoughts running through his mind. When Lin Feng heard that he was praised, he was smug. He basically said everything that needed to be said. Of course, this was recommended by the boss. I, a popular professional esports player, went to buy this thing. I didn't even take off my mask the entire time. That was why he was dressed like this. Yunhu could roughly guess the reason. I didn't know you had such thoughts about me. When Lin Feng heard this, he coughed softly. The problem of the position has to be resolved sooner or later. It's better to resolve it later than later. Yunhu was reminded of the message Spade had sent him. Based on his understanding of a certain someone, he wouldn't have thought of this if he hadn't been provoked. It seemed like he really had to treat Spade to a meal after today. Lin Feng couldn't read Yunhu's thoughts. Everything was ready except for the east wind. Following the procedure, he asked, "Shall we shower separately?" "Sure." Yunhu broke into a smile. There was no reason for him to reject someone who had sent himself to his doorstep. Since he agreed so readily, Lin Feng found a set of pajamas and tossed it to Yunhu before heading to the other bathroom. He went through the tutorial again. When he was almost done, Lin Feng said to the mirror, "With such a handsome attack, Yunhu won't be able to handle it." If Bo Jiao had heard his words, she would have scoffed at him. Unfortunately, it was indeed handsome. But an attack? Sorry, not at all. Lin Feng walked out with absolute confidence. He was determined to take down Yunhu. Hence, his gait was more imposing than usual. But for some reason, the moment his aura reached Yunhu, it was like a punctured balloon. At this moment, Yunhu walked out. He was wearing his pajamas, which was a little small. Hence, the top two buttons weren't buttoned. Instead, they were half open, revealing his enviable curves. Lin Feng was a little jealous. What exactly did this guy do to the gym? Shouldn't a professional gamer be abnormally pale and powerless? With a face like this, did he even have any professionalism? What happened to the fat homebody that only knew how to play games? Lin Feng had forgotten about a certain someone's background and the time in the dormitory. Every morning, he would wake him up for a run. He didn't know what to say. "Let me sleep a little longer." That was basically it. Getting up early didn't seem like something pro players would do. Look at the captain. It was a typical personality that was grumpy the moment he woke up. Whoever dared to wake him up in the morning would be punished with an extra hour of training. However, Lin Feng finally understood. Once it was time to see the results on the bed. Running in the morning was really useful. Since he had just showered, Yunhu's black hair was still wet. Droplets of water landed on his face and flowed down his neck. Under such circumstances, his eyes seemed even deeper. For some reason, Lin Feng felt that his heart was beating faster. He clearly didn't feel anything just now. Chapter 1536. Begin. Lin Feng's face heated up from the other party's breath. Yunhu lowered his lids. "I'm ready. Aren't we going to start?" "Of course." Lin Feng moved his right hand and pushed him against the wall. His voice was hoarse. "But I have to start." What a joke. He had been kissed by Yunhu before. Every time he kissed him, his waist would weaken and his mind would go blank. Not to mention taking the initiative. Wouldn't he lie flat on the ground? Hence, even if they had to start, he had to be the one to start. Yunhu didn't know what Lin Feng was thinking. But someone had to take the initiative. Of course, he wouldn't reject anyone. "Okay, you'll start." Yunhu lowered his gaze as he spoke. Lin Feng moved closer, but somehow, he felt that something was very awkward. Probably because his heart was beating too fast. It was so fast that he didn't know why, but he felt that the breath from Yunhu's body had stuck to his body before he even touched him. Yunhu noticed Lin Feng's hesitation. His grip tightened bit by bit. Until now, he was still worried that this fellow couldn't accept it. And he had the mood to do it. But he still hadn't figured out what exactly was going on. Every time, he was the one who took the initiative to kiss him. Then he was forced to accept it. Could Lin Feng really accept him as a man? It wasn't just in his mind. No. The moment Lin Feng said those two words, everyone was stunned. Yunhu's heart felt as though it had been cut by a knife. He steadied his breath and tried his best not to show his emotions. Usually, this kind of thing can be accepted. You can't look at me like that. Lin Feng raised his eyes once more. Perhaps it was because his skin was too fair. Everyone could see the pink on his neck. However, his aura did not lose. Close your eyes. I say, Wuxia, do you have any common sense? Who would open their eyes when being kissed? Yunhu paused for a moment before smiling. I forgot, I'll close my eyes now. So this guy was just shy. He even brought up the topic of whether he had common sense or not. Fortunately, he was shy. If he really couldn't accept it, what should he do? The moment Yunhu thought of this, his heart would contract. However, at this moment, Lin Feng lowered his gaze. It was a kiss that left as soon as they touched. If Yunhu's eyes were open, they would be deep. Stop yourself from responding. It was because they hadn't reached the back yet. If he couldn't control himself now, he wouldn't get the sweetest part. Lin Feng only kissed her once, but it was as if he was addicted. The scent became stronger and stronger, causing him to lean in again. But this time, he didn't know what went wrong. Yunhu just replied to him. His brain seemed to be unable to react again. His heart was beating faster than ever. His aura wasn't stable at all. By the time he reacted, his waist had already been grabbed by the other party. But in front of a kiss, all of this seemed unimportant. Lin Feng had to admit that this guy's kissing skills were too good. Perhaps it was not only his kissing skills, but also the flames that were ignited wherever his hands touched seemed to be inextinguishable. A numbing sensation could be felt from his tailbone. Beneath him was the soft bedding. When the watch on his wrist was pressed against him, Lin Feng shuddered. His vitals were being held by someone else. Lin Feng just said, "Don't." The man leaned over and his voice missed his face, hitting the back of his ears again and again. You like it. Indeed, he liked it. No one would dislike being treated like this. It was a completely different feeling from his own hands. Lin Feng couldn't describe it. He only felt his thoughts drifting away. He didn't have the ability to think anymore. Not to mention the matter of taking the initiative and not taking the initiative. Between his fingers, the scent, was the temperature he could feel the most. And the heat that hit his shoulder when he lowered his lids. The temperature in the entire room rose. Lin Feng didn't have the chance to see his face. At the start, he didn't want it. But now, he wanted him to stay a little longer. Yunhu's eyes dimmed. He seemed to be enduring something. When the kiss landed on the side of his ear, he didn't forget to reach for something. At this moment, Lin Feng was really floating. Both his eyes were looking at the ceiling. His body was still in the most numbing warmth. All of a sudden, he lifted her up in his arms. In that instant, it wasn't that he didn't feel pain. Lin Feng's eyes widened in an instant. He said, F***CK. He wanted to push him away. Yunhu also stopped at this moment. The sweat on his forehead was more than ever. I'm sorry, I probably can't stop. Lin Feng's eyes widened again. The next moment, he could feel the other party's kiss landing. But he didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. Not only that, there was even a feeling that he was going to be engulfed entirely. After this thing got used to it. He didn't know why, but what came surging was more numbness. Lin Feng's entire body was soft. It was as if he was fished out of the water. His thoughts were all jumbled up. But it was his voice beside his ear. You're right. This model is really useful. Lin Feng felt the strength from the other party. There was something mixed in it. It actually stimulated more numbness. Lin Feng recalled the mysterious words his boss had said to him. Try it on your boyfriend. There will be unexpected effects. Now, Lin Feng finally experienced what that effect was. He wanted more. Yunhu also realized that this thing was different from the one he usually used. He only paused for a moment before he didn't restrain his strength anymore. In the full-length mirror, One could see a fair-skinned handsome man being held by another man at the waist from behind. As his black hair fell, the man looked as if he could not take it anymore and arched his neck. Yunhu didn't hesitate at all. He lowered his head and gave him a deep kiss. He didn't intend to let him go. From the moment he knew what he was going to do. That was Yunhu's plan. He could be called despicable. Anything else was better. As long as he could have him. That was more important than anything else. Lin Feng finally understood what it felt like to walk into a trap. But it was all too late. Who would have thought that the thing he had meticulously prepared would be used on himself? And who was the one who said that he wouldn't be suppressed if he took the initiative? It was impossible to say that Lin Feng didn't have any resentment. But no matter what, he had enjoyed it. It wasn't as hard to accept as he had imagined. It was just very awkward. So much so that the next morning, the sky hadn't even brightened. Chapter 1537. After escaping, Lin Feng didn't go anywhere. He went straight back to the Lin family's house. With the marks on his body, he definitely wouldn't be able to go to the construction site. It was obvious that his waist and legs weren't feeling well. Moreover, his throat was dry. Yunhu hadn't intended to let him have a good sleep yesterday. At this thought, Lin Feng pulled the blanket over his head. F***ck. If it had been him, he wouldn't have let him have a good sleep either. But if it had been him, he wouldn't have let him have a good sleep either. Everything was different now. He just found out that Yunhu was born in the year of the dog. The type of dog that looked like a wolf puppy. It was a popular term nowadays. Lin Feng had never imagined that there would be a day when he would use this term on Yunhu. He didn't have a fever. Lin Feng realized that his body was clean when he woke up. It must have been after he fainted last night. Yunhu had carried him to shower. Lin Feng tightened his grip again. His face was hot. Perhaps it was because the aura that had been branded on his body was too strong. Even now, Lin Feng felt as if he could hear that guy's low panting next to his ear as soon as he closed his eyes. He could also hear that deep voice in heat. F***ck. Lin Feng moved, intending to stand up and take a shower. However, it was also at this moment. His cell phone rang in his pocket. It was a message from Little Spade, asking daily, "How was yesterday? Did you take down Almighty Yun?" When she sent this message, she was sitting in the team's canteen, supporting her chin lazily. Ever since they had recruited new members, the Qin group had specially set up a small canteen for the young trainees to have a balanced diet. After all, as esports gained recognition, the age of the trainees was getting younger. At first, Bo Jiu didn't mind since she liked to sleep. In school, she would lie on her desk without hesitation to catch up on her sleep since hackers operated at night. She would naturally feel sleepy during the day. Bo Jiu had intended to find a place to sleep while the trainees ate. Just then, she saw the small figure holding a steamed bun in his hand. There was a cup beside him which seemed to be filled with hot water. He was reading while munching on the steamed bun and drinking the hot water. There wasn't a single expression on his fair and clear face. It was probably because she was still underage, and she was small to begin with. Bo Jiu found the little kid extremely adorable. Her hand paused for a moment before she perked up. She stuffed one hand into her pocket, her silver hair falling down. She kept her phone, picked up her plate, and walked towards the little figure. Little Mo Bei was originally swallowing a bun, but when she saw the person sitting opposite her, her ears reddened for some reason. Bo Jiu arched a brow. "How can you just eat steamed buns?" "When I was your age, I would eat 5 steamed buns with bean meat." Little Mo Bei was about to speak. The man picked up the chopsticks, picked up a piece of egg, and brought it to her mouth. Little Mo Bei's eyes drifted a little, but there was no expression on her face. Bo Jiu smiled lazily. "Little Mo Bei, what are you waiting for? Come, open your mouth." No one would reject their idol, including Little Mo Bei. However, just as she opened her mouth and swallowed the food in one mouthful. Chapter 1538. Just as Little Mo Bei was suspecting if she had seen wrongly, Qin Mo walked towards them. He reached out and pulled Bo Jiu's collar from the back. "Don't force a child to eat things she doesn't like." Bo Jiu tilted her head and her gaze changed. Then, she looked at the person in front of her. "Little Mo Bei doesn't like eggs?" Little Mo Bei looked at her captain's gaze and then at her idol's face, which could make one's ears turn red. Her voice was cold and serious. I like it. Then eat more. Bo Jio picked up another piece of egg and passed it over. Chinamo narrowed his eyes. He didn't say anything, but the cold aura from his body made his assistant, who had come over, push his spectacles up the bridge of his nose. Was young master jealous? Actually, he wasn't jealous. But in the past, a certain someone had always accompanied him. Now, he seemed to be overly concerned about the child in front of him. Bo Jio indeed treated little Mo Bei differently. After all, at the start, if it wasn't for this child, she wouldn't have been able to enter so quickly. Moreover, the child's aura was similar to Qin Mo's when he was young. Bo Jio would definitely be more concerned about her. But after caring for her, she realized that this child was different from others. She was always alone. She would spend the least amount of money on food. She didn't like to talk. When she practiced, she was more hardworking than anyone else. Playing esports was indeed a test of whether a person had the talent in this area. Not everyone who liked to play games was suitable for this industry. Some people were born to play well. And no matter how much they practiced, they would still be the same in the end. Hence, when some people gave up their studies to play esports, they had to consider carefully. After all, this industry wasn't suitable for everyone. Did they have the mental capacity to handle it? Did they have the talent? Did they know what was the most important thing in gaming? How fast their hands were and how good their judgment was. This was also the reason why Supreme Alliance would go through layers of screening when they recruited. Even if this method of selection would make people say that Supreme Alliance didn't treat them well after they got the first place, they would still use this method to screen. Every industry had its bright and beautiful side. Similarly, there was a side that wasn't known to people. Even Supreme Alliance wouldn't be liked by everyone. Those who hadn't made a name for themselves were either idolizing or waiting for Supreme Alliance to fall. Hence, when he found out about Supreme Alliance's recruitment conditions, he would mock them. After mocking them, he would say, "Let's stop here, in case Supreme Alliance's fans say that their eyes are sore. I really like playing esports. It doesn't matter if I'm popular or not, I'm just playing. I just can't stand it when some people start to look down on ordinary people after getting first place." What a joke. Words like that would definitely spread among the trainees. Bo Jio had been on duty for the past 2 days and had heard such discussions. He also knew that some of them felt that they weren't valued enough and were wondering if they should join Supreme Alliance. When Bo Jio heard this, she leaned against the wall and smiled. She didn't seem to care who stayed and who left. But just as she was about to leave. Chapter 1539. What does a child like you know? Some people join just because they like it. The trainees seem to have found the little kid an eyesore. You go wherever you want to go. You don't have any expression the entire day. You are so arrogant. Didn't you get recruited just because you showed your skills during the internal competition? We are different from you. We have worked hard to get to where we are now, unlike you who have never experienced any setbacks. You just need to build a good relationship with Almighty Z. You imitate other people's playstyles and you don't have anything of your own. A woman shouldn't be the vice captain. Even Almighty Z disappoints us when it comes to choosing people. Why did he choose someone like you? What a joke. Almighty Z chose me because I play better than all of you. If you can't take this lying down, you can challenge me to a duel. But I know that people like you who gossip behind people's backs will always be like this. You talk about how hard you work, but your focus will never be on esports. If you really like it, you would have gone to practice a long time ago. You shouldn't be here gossiping and saying that your eyes aren't sore. I'll still say the same thing. If you don't want to win, you can play for fun. Why are you playing professionally? Everyone who joins a professional team wants to stand at a higher position, and no one wants to lose. You joined because Supreme Alliance is famous and you want more people to know about it. What's the point of saying such things? Please, we aren't like you. We only want to be popular. The little figure's expression was still indifferent. Different from me? I am indeed different from all of you. What I want is simple. I want to win. I want Supreme Alliance to always stand at the top and not be pulled down by anyone. This is my motive for playing professionally. At the same time, I can earn money to support myself. For those who have never thought of entering the National League, it is better not to neglect their studies. After all, Only those who have walked the path of esports know how difficult it is. Isn't it normal for Supreme Alliance to reject me? You are mocking us not because you don't want to be popular but because you know you won't be able to be the first in the advancement competition. What a joke. Do you think we are like you, lacking money so much that we have to prove ourselves? Forget it. I'm not talking to a retard. The little figure glanced over. Since you know I'm a retard, don't create a smurf account here and talk about Almighty Z as a fan. From Bo Jio's angle, she could clearly see his face turning green. He probably hadn't expected the little figure to know his secret. His expression changed instantly. The little figure retracted her gaze. This isn't a world where you can climb up just because you pull someone down. Of course, you will say that you didn't think that way because you felt indignant and that Almighty Z's actions were wrong. You can talk about it after the advancement competition. With that, the little figure turned. She didn't seem afraid that they were all taller than her. Her voice was calm. I will win and destroy all of you. You! The person wanted to attack. The person beside him reminded him that there was a camera above him. That person's gaze turned dark. The few trainees didn't notice. Bo Jio watched the entire scene. Ever since that day, there seemed to be many voices coming out. The youngest trainee of Supreme Alliance was too arrogant and didn't know how to cooperate with the team. After being found out, she became arrogant and would always say things that would slap her own face. Some fans claimed to have seen the entire process and were disappointed with Supreme Alliance's selection rules. They felt that this wasn't the Supreme Alliance they knew. Someone even said that Spade Z chose people based on their looks or that she had received some kind of benefits. Another wave of people came out to express their disappointment. In the end, the child seemed to be anxious. This was also the reason why Bo Jio started to look at little Mo Bei. She was indeed likable. But this child was too straightforward. She was easily broken. Bo Jio had wanted to reason things out with the kid, but now, she couldn't help herself. But the moment she met her eyes, she decided to forget about it. Anyway, they were all here. At the very least they could raise the child. Also, how far could Supreme Alliance go? No one could predict it. After all, the circle would change. Bo Jio held her chin and smiled lazily. Feeding the child always gave her a sense of achievement. Chin Mo just sat there, his aura colder than usual. Little Mo Bei could feel it. After she was full, she went to train. Chin Mo glanced at the child before retracting his gaze. He brought a certain someone towards the office. Bo Jio was still sleepy. It wasn't good to wake up so early. After entering the office, Chin Mo arched a brow. You like children? MH. A long time ago, Bo Jio didn't have any special feelings towards children. But ever since she had met a certain someone through the window, she didn't know why she couldn't feel at ease whenever she saw a quiet and cold child. In the future, because of this, she would forget that children could also be a trap. But now, she seemed to have thought it through. It was probably because she had met little Mo Bei, who was like the Almighty when he was young. Children were more like angels. Especially this kind of child who had facial paralysis. Her ears would turn red when she was teased. She had her own unique judgment and didn't follow the crowd. She was indeed a charming existence. Chin Mo walked over and placed a hand on her side. He lowered his body. Since you like it so much, give birth to one yourself. Bo Jio hadn't reacted yet. Chin Mo spoke again, his emotions calm. After you enter university, we'll go to the 5th Avenue and stay there. There won't be any messy people that you need to feed. It'll be convenient for you to prepare for pregnancy. Bo Jio wanted to ask Brother Mo if he was actually jealous. But the Almighty lowered his head and kissed her lips. His breath lingered at the tip of her nose. She could still hear his voice faintly. In the future, if you want to feed someone, consider your husband, Mrs. Chin. Bo Jio smiled, her silver hair moving slightly. All right, but Brother Mo, you're always so jealous. In the future, when we really have our own children, you won't be jealous of the child, right? Chin Mo lowered his lids, his thin lips landing on her face. His emotions were still calm. That depends on whether he knows how to behave. Chapter 1540. What's considered sensible and what's considered immature? Bo Jio decided to ask in advance so that he wouldn't get jealous. Chin Mo glanced down, his tone calm. You have too many questions. Bo Jiu was about to reply. China Mo leaned down and kissed a certain someone. Not only could he keep her quiet, but she wouldn't have time to care about anything else. Hence, Bo Jiu missed Lin Feng's message perfectly. Actually, when Lin Feng saw Little Spade's question, he had been thinking about how to reply. Tell the truth? How was that possible? This was a matter of a man's reputation. Not replying? Little Spade must have thought that he didn't manage to take him down. His words were too strong and wouldn't be believable. Lin Feng moved his fingers and typed a few words. I'm taking care of who? His waist hurts. That's all, I won't say any more. Such a reply should be extremely trustworthy, right? Before this day, he had wanted to brag about his skills this morning. But now, it seemed like he didn't know how to brag. But he couldn't tell Little Spade that he was the one below. After Lin Feng sent the message, he decided to rest. In his current state, he wouldn't be able to meet anyone. When his mother asked him when he came in, he said he had a cold and wasn't feeling well. That was the only thing he could say. Otherwise, he couldn't say that he was still the one below after sleeping with who. Thinking about this, Lin Feng was reminded of the scene yesterday. Why didn't he reject him when he lowered his lids? He felt as though he was a magnetic field that had a fatal attraction. Should he say that he was too handsome, or was it because of his skills? Lin Feng shook his head, trying to shake off the image in his mind. Unexpectedly, before he could shake off the image, his phone rang. The caller ID showed that it was Yun Hu. When Lin Feng saw the name, he froze and pressed the mute button. He looked at the phone as though he was looking at a monster. His eyes turned round. But as a man of steel, his pride told him that if he didn't dare to pick up the call, he wouldn't be a man. Didn't he just sleep? Didn't he just fail to attack and get suppressed? Didn't he just use the things he bought on himself? What? Wasn't that right? Anyway, he was already home. Was there a need to be afraid of Yun Xiaohu, who was 10 miles away? There was nothing to fear. Answer the phone. After Lin Feng was mentally prepared, he took a deep breath, placed the phone by his ear, and pressed the answer button. He purposely lowered his voice to make the other party sound mature and steady. Hello. Not bad, my aura is at least full marks. It wasn't suppressed. Lin Feng evaluated himself. He heard him say, run after sleeping. Is that how you play, God Lin? F***ck your God Lin. Lin Feng absolutely believed that this guy did it on purpose and was about to explode. Yun Hu's voice came again. Are you feeling unwell? Not bad. Lin Feng moved a little awkwardly. Yun Hu's voice was still calm. The moment I opened my eyes, you were gone. I thought I had a dream yesterday. After all, I'm used to having such dreams all these years. Chapter 1541. I bought medicine for you. Yun Hu lowered his voice, sounding a little hoarse. You need to apply medicine to that area. It wasn't a big deal, but Lin Feng blushed at the old man's words. He tilted his head. It's okay. I'll be fine after a nap. Besides, I'm not there. Where are you? At the Lin family? Yun Hu asked casually. MH, Lin Feng replied. Since they weren't in the same place, Yun Hu couldn't do anything to him. Unexpectedly, Yun Hu's next sentence was, wait, Lin Feng. It better not be what he thought it was. Lin Feng couldn't wrap his head around this thought. Just then, he heard some noise coming from downstairs. It was indeed Yun Hu. Other than the medicine, Yun Hu also brought 2 bags of fruits, which were Mother Lin's favorites. Mother Lin was elated when she saw Yun Hu. Hu, why are you free? I'm here to see you, godmother. Yun Hu had always been good with words. Mother Lin's smile deepened. Didn't we just see you? Don't leave today. We'll cook fish tonight. Okay, Yun Hu replied. He pretended to ask casually, where's Lin Feng? He's sleeping upstairs. I don't know what's wrong with him recently. He's acting weird. He insists on staying alone and doesn't let me into his room when he has a cold. Mother Lin shook her head. He's really grown up. He knows how to be shy. Lin Feng listened to his mother through the doorframe. He really wondered whose real mother she was. She was basically inviting a wolf into the house. Lin Feng jumped up from the bed, hesitating if he should lock the door. If he didn't lock it, it would be really awkward for him to see Yunhu now. If he locked it, it would be too deliberate. Just as Lin Feng was hesitating, a low voice came from downstairs. Then I'll go up and see him. Go. Mother Lin was really happy. I'll go cut the fruits. Lin Feng. His mother was sending him to the wolf's mouth. It was like this in the past and now. Lin Feng felt that his cold couldn't be cured. Since he couldn't avoid it, he might as well be more generous. He decided he couldn't lose face no matter what. What was there to be afraid of? When Yunhu walked in, Lin Feng quickly adjusted his expression and sat back on the chair, pretending to play a game and start a live stream. Yunhu hadn't expected to see such a scene. He thought that someone should be lying in bed right now. I can still play games? After Lin Feng sensed that someone had entered, he pretended to be aloof and looked down. You're here? Yunhu didn't say anything. Instead, he walked over and placed his hand on his forehead. Lin Feng paused. His aura had obviously softened. You can just talk. Why are you hitting me? F***CK, that's cheating. You're not going to make a move? Yunhu arched a brow. He lowered his gaze and pressed his forehead against his. This made Lin Feng recall the scene from last night. It's really me. I don't have a fever. Lin Feng stretched out his hand to push her away, but when he moved, he suddenly pulled his waist, causing him to stiffen in pain. Yunhu noticed his discomfort and placed his fingers on the back of his waist. That action seemed to wrap around Lin Feng's entire body. Lin Feng only felt that the temperature on his face was getting hotter, but the strength of the kneading was just right. It was really a case of a tiger being bullied by a dog. If they were to do it again, he would definitely not be suppressed. The next time he saw the boss of that shop, he would definitely ask him to give him something more normal. He shouldn't give him anything that had a hastening effect. If it wasn't for that thing, he wouldn't have been so helpless. What a blunder. That's right, it was a blunder. Lin Feng would never admit that he wasn't as skilled as someone else. Let me get it back next time. When Yunhu heard this, he arched a brow. There seemed to be a hidden smile at the corner of his lips. Sure. Next time? This kind of thing should be based on ability. This fellow didn't seem to understand his position. But it didn't matter. As for Yunhu, he was very supportive of Lin Feng's wish. But usually, only things that would never come true would be called a wish. Go to the bed. When Lin Feng heard these words, he took a huge step back. F***CK. What do you want me to do on the bed? Apply the ointment. Yunhu looked at that person, his voice faint. What else do you think I want to do? Lin Feng was slightly embarrassed. After a moment he said, Don't say such ambiguous words in the future. Just apply the ointment. Yunhu glanced at him. Okay. Lin Feng was still a little uncomfortable. After that person touched the ointment, he wanted to rub it on his neck. To reduce the swelling. Lin Feng thought to himself, You still know that when you kiss someone, you don't care about your life. But he didn't say it directly. Instead, he insisted on doing it himself. Yunhu didn't say much and placed the ointment in his palm. He glanced at the messy bed again. A certain someone must have been pretending just now. How was it possible that he was playing games? Yunhu glanced over, his gaze landing on Lin Feng again. Lin Feng didn't know what to do under that gaze. But he heard him say, Take off your pants. This time, Lin Feng didn't act rashly. Why would I take off my pants? What do you think? Yunhu reached out and pressed down on his back. There's a place where I can help you apply the ointment. It's more convenient. Lin Feng watched as the angular face got closer and closer to him. It was so close that he didn't even have a chance to resist. He could only cover himself with the blanket. Even the back of his neck was red. He didn't even look at the person sitting beside his bed. After that, Lin Feng did sleep for a while. But when it was time for dinner, Mother Lin definitely came up to rush them. Hey, after Hu Zi came, you even recovered from your illness? Lin Feng didn't say anything. Beauty, I'm forcing myself. After all, I have to eat with you. Don't be talkative, come down and eat. Mother Lin went downstairs happily. Lin Feng. His words were flippant and Yunhu's words were sensible. Did his mother really speak based on bloodline? He hadn't eaten much since last night. Lin Feng was hungry. When he saw the table full of dishes, he couldn't control his chopsticks. Potato spicy chicken, chopped red pepper fish head, steamed lotus root, these were all his and Yun Hu's favorite dishes. His mother usually found it troublesome to cook and never did it. She was really her own son. Lin Feng cursed in his heart. He lowered his head and planned to eat to his heart's content. But he didn't know what was wrong with Yun Hu. Wherever he extended his chopsticks, Yun Hu would stick his chopsticks there as though he was going against him. When he wanted to pick up a piece of chicken, Yun Hu snatched the food from his chopsticks for the third time. Lin Feng was about to get angry. Yun Hu placed a green vegetable in his bowl. You aren't feeling well. Don't eat such spicy food. Mother Lin thought that Yun Hu was talking about the flu. Who is right? Go and get yourself a bowl of soup. Lin Feng remembered the information he had researched online. For example, as a qualified attacker. After waking up the next day, he had to make porridge or soup for the person on the bed. At that time, he had planned to be gentle and considerate in front of Yun Hu. Now he was the one drinking the soup. Lin Feng's mood was obvious. In front of the table of food he liked, he couldn't eat anything. It was really depressing. Moreover, Yun Hu was going to sleep here today. Even though it was still a little early to sleep, Lin Feng would be reminded of the previous night whenever he saw the bed or the way Yun Hu rolled up his sleeves. It was still awkward. Mother Lin also noticed that her son was unusually quiet today. She didn't know if it was because of the flu. When she passed the fruit to Yun Hu, she said, "Ask him if he has anything on his mind recently." Yun Hu took the fruit plate and said, "He probably isn't feeling well. He will be fine tomorrow." "Is that so?" Mama Lin breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought he was unhappy about the blind date." Yun Hu paused. "Blind date? It's a business cooperation company. It's also an old friend who works with the Lin family frequently." Mother Lin said, "The other party said that his granddaughter is a fan of Lin Feng and has always wanted to meet him. She has a good impression of Lin Feng and recently, he has decided to let the two of them meet. This way, it would be convenient for them to discuss business. Speaking of which, I don't want to see Lin Feng running around like this. The Lin family doesn't lack money, but you should understand that it can't be compared to the past. Some people are now keeping a respectful distance from Lin Feng, probably because they are afraid that Lin Feng will ask them for help. These people still don't understand Lin Feng. You grew up with him and you should understand that he won't ask for help unless he has no other choice. Besides, the Lin family hasn't reached the point where it has to ask anyone for help. In the past few years, I haven't been controlling Lin Feng. He can do whatever he wants because he said he likes to play games. Before you went overseas, he talked to me and said that he would retire after the Asian Cup. He is now preparing for this. As his mother, I can tell that even though he looks like that, he will be able to shoulder all the responsibilities when the Lin family really needs him. But there's something, Yun Hu, you have to tell him that even though his grandmother and I are the only ones left in the Lin family, it doesn't mean that all the responsibilities will fall on his shoulders. He can do whatever he wants to do. He can play esports for another 2 years. Both his father and I looked forward to him coming into this world. Our initial hope was for him to walk the path he wanted to walk. The more Yun Hu listened, the deeper his gaze became. It was so deep that he couldn't find his footing. It wasn't that he didn't feel guilty towards Mother Lin. But compared to the guilt, he really couldn't leave that person. Basically, the happiness that all parents could think of was to see their children get married and have children. This would never happen to Lin Feng again. If it really happened, Yun Hu didn't know what he would do. Chapter 1542. Yun Hu was about to speak. But when he looked up, he saw the figure standing at the staircase. He shook his head at him. It was very slight, but it made Yun Hu understand that today wasn't a suitable day to confess anything. But it was precisely because he understood that he tasted something bitter in his mouth. It was the same taste from the tip of his tongue to his heart. Yun Hu watched as the figure turned and walked back to the room. He said a few comforting words to Mother Lin. In reality, he didn't even know what he said in such a state. Just like what Mother Lin said, others might not understand Lin Feng. But he knew better than anyone else. That person appeared to be carefree, but he knew what responsibility was more than anyone else. Even now, Yoon, who could still remember that stubborn look. Both of them weren't tall when they were young and they were often bullied. Speaking of which, he had always stood in front of him. It wasn't because of how strong he was at that time, but because he would always say to those people, "Don't bully me." Even if he couldn't beat him, he would still say that. At the start, Yoon, who felt that he was stupid. He looked like a little bun, but he still stood in front of him. Didn't this guy know how to run first? He had asked someone before. In the end, a certain someone opened his eyes wide. "If I leave, who will protect you?" It seemed to have been from that time. Yoon, who felt that he had a very important person. He was 5 or 6 years old, but he only wanted that person to accompany him. Who was the one who said that when we came into this world, we were all lonely individuals? This feeling couldn't be erased. Even if you had parents who loved you, in the dead of night, you still want to be alone. Someone who was good to you. Lin Feng had never been a person with stable results since he was young. But every time, in order to be in the same class as him, he would always work harder than anyone else. Everything you get is not meant to be in your hands. Even if in the eyes of many people, it was good to have a good life. But when you had a good life, you wanted friends, even someone who was more than a friend. When he was young, he didn't want to be a lover. He was not that good at first awakening of love. But compared to being a lover, he wanted to be with the other party for the rest of his life. This thought existed countless times. Hence, Yoon, who was afraid. He was afraid that Lin Feng would shrink back because of some responsibility. Hence, when he entered with the fruit platter, Yoon, who didn't say a word. He pressed her against the wall and kissed her lips fiercely. However, Lin Feng didn't continue pestering him. Instead, he used his strength and said in a deep voice, "Even if lightning strikes you, you're not allowed to regret it. Lin Feng, you slept with me, so you have to take responsibility." Lin Feng paused for a moment before cursing. Since it was inconvenient for him to move, he could only hold his forehead and growl, "You were the one who slept with me. Don't go overboard." Yoon, who didn't linger on the topic. Instead, he lowered his head, his voice calm. "I won't let you go on a blind date. If you really go, I'll destroy all your relationships just like how I did in school. I'll snatch whoever you like. You should understand that it's easy for me to do that." When Lin Feng heard this, his mouth opened and closed. "You did it on purpose then?" "Yes." Yoon, whose eyes dimmed. He seemed to have gambled everything. It didn't matter if he was confident or self-centered. It didn't matter if he dragged this person into the most difficult path. He couldn't let go. In the past, he could still tell himself that it was fine as long as he stayed by his side. However, when he truly obtained someone and tasted the sweetness, he would understand that seeing him happy was nonsense. Only he could give him his happiness. Lin Feng watched the expression of the person in front of him. A sense of familiarity slowly came over him. He remembered when he had seen Yoon, who reveal such an expression. It was the first time he went to KFC with a girl he had feelings for. Back then, they did their homework on the second floor of KFC. Unlike now, high school students could still go to coffee shops. After finishing their homework, he had to treat her to a meal. In the first year of high school, he had already started to want to play games. Hence, he was very interested in the big players in the shopping mall. Moreover, that girl wanted to play too. They went upstairs after their meal. At first, there wasn't much. After that, he grabbed a doll and gave it to the girl. The girl blushed and hugged him. At that time, Lin Feng was a little confused. Before he could react, he saw Yoon Hoo. That person wasn't wearing the school uniform. That person wasn't wearing the school uniform, but the Supreme Alliance's uniform. He just stood there, one hand in his pocket, looking at him without a word. Lin Feng felt awkward at that time. After all, when he was young, he would feel shy when his best brother saw him with a girl. Moreover, Yoon, who had sent him a message asking where he was. His reply was that he would be back soon. But it had been more than an hour since Yoon Hoo's message. Lin Feng originally wanted to call out to Yoon Hoo. But that person didn't seem to see him. He turned and left. Lin Feng remembered that was Yoon Hoo's expression at that time. After that, the girl sent him messages every day. Then, she sent him a message every 3 days and a week. Occasionally, when she was bored, she would send him a message. Lin Feng only wanted to join the team. He didn't think much about this aspect. But he didn't say that he didn't care. He still wanted to pick a gift for that girl's birthday. But on that day, Yun brought a girlfriend back. It was that girl. Lin Feng was indeed a little dumbfounded. However, what he would feel the most would probably come from his brothers fighting over him. He even communicated with Yun. In the future, tell me in advance if you like someone. He remembered that Yun tilted his head and took off his uniform. Why? Are you afraid that the person I like won't like you? Lin Feng fought him back then, but he didn't land his fist on the other party's face. Be more serious. I just feel that since we're in a relationship, we should be more serious with each other. Besides, you could have told me in advance that I wouldn't have touched anyone you liked. Isn't that good? F***ck me. Indeed it's good. But what if I say that I always like people you like? What are you going to do? Lin Feng? You're really... I'm joking. I'll tell you in advance in case you hate me. I'm really sorry about this. I know you like her. I knew it when I saw you guys at the big players, but I couldn't control it. Chapter 1543. Lin Feng didn't know what expression to show anymore. The Yun family will definitely arrange a blind date for you. Compared to me, Yun shouldn't you think about it more? You're the only child in the Yun family, and you're in a different industry. You should know if you're suitable for me. In the past, you said you liked me but you never let me come into contact with your circle. When you went overseas, I did some research. Many people like men while harming women. How many girls have been married without realizing it? How many people still think they're forced to live this way because they want to carry on the family line? I can't understand it. If it was me, liking men is liking men. Who asked me to like you? You're a man. I won't harm any other girl. Even if I end up alone, I won't be forgiven by my mother. I will be like this and perhaps disappoint my mother. When I was young, she asked me what kind of wife I wanted to marry. My grandmother doted on me and gave me everything I wanted. If I wanted to play esports, she would let me play esports. If I said I would stay in school for another year, she would let me stay. I was even a little afraid of telling them what kind of relationship I had with you. My mother has always been open-minded, but even the most open-minded parent would cry after hearing this news. I've let her down the most in my life. Now that the Lin family has fallen, it's because I've acted according to my own personality. I want to continue playing esports, but it's no longer suitable. My hand speed can't keep up and I can't put all my heart into it. I'm not afraid of the netizens saying that Lin Feng can't do it anymore or that you're a disappointment. I'm not afraid of that. I'm afraid that I won't be passionate about what I'm doing now. Besides, my mother and grandmother need me. I understand that my mother is good in business and most people can't do anything to her. But I hope that I'll be the one attending the necessary social gatherings. I might never be able to get married and have children to fulfill her wishes, but I want to take on some responsibilities. If I really start a relationship, I'll be especially busy. Can you take it? I'll probably be discussing projects everywhere. I might even pretend to be a grandson or I'll only have money in my eyes. When that happens. Chapter 1544. The sudden flirtation made Lin Feng cough. I don't need you to tell me that I'm handsome. Yun smiled and didn't say anything else, but his gaze was still on his face. Lin Feng turned his head, the back of his ears still a little red. After seeing her tomorrow, I will tell Fox Feng that I plan to retire in 2 days. In the future, I will have to manage the company and attend classes at school. I won't have time to join the team anymore. But I'm still very happy. At least I can stay until the recruitment. When I saw little Mo Bay, it was like seeing Luo, Little Spade, and Captain. Talent really exists. The Supreme Alliance wouldn't just disband, right? When he reached the end of his sentence, Lin Feng lowered his head slightly. When his black hair fell down, it covered his eyes. No one seemed to like mentioning the word, retire. If it was possible. They all wanted to play one more match. Even the sounds of mockery could be heard. Every match would be extremely stressful. But after so many years, he seemed to be used to it. There was a group of people who had always been with him. From when he was a minor to when he was an adult, and from when he was ignorant, he grew up to be a man with sharp features. If it was possible, He really didn't want to disband. Yunhu replied faintly as though he was saying it to himself. It won't. He knew very well that Lin Feng made this decision. Between esports and him, he chose him. He gave up playing esports for another year and a half to take on all the responsibilities of the Lin family. But it was to repay the debt they owed. Yunhu couldn't get rid of Lin Feng's guilt. Nothing else happened that night, even though Lin Feng's heart was beating fast. But more than that, he felt comfortable with the existence of another person. The two of them slept on the same bed, their heads leaning against each other, just like how they used to do homework and train at the same time. At that time, they were also trainees of the Supreme Alliance. They just wanted to participate in the competition one day. Now, everything seemed to be perfect. The next day, Lin Feng received a message from Bo Jiao. There was only one sentence. Guess if I believe what you said, Flower Lin. Lin Feng lowered his head and snapped a photo of Yunhu in an imposing manner. He sent it over. He's still on my bed and I'm already awake. I don't think I need to elaborate on the rest. After sending the message, Lin Feng took out a suit. He planned to go to the company to attend a meeting as a low-level manager after the meal with the woman. However, just as he was about to take off the t-shirt, the person behind him suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of deep black eyes. You're awake so early? Yunhu's voice was low and hoarse, probably because he had just woken up. Lin Feng's hands were a little hesitant. He didn't know why, but it wasn't like he hadn't changed in front of this guy before. Why did it feel so awkward now? It was as if his back was being burned by someone's gaze. Even his face was burning. Forget it, who cares? Lin Feng grabbed the hem of his shirt with both hands and quickly dug his head out. The t-shirt was still hanging on his arm. He felt the footsteps getting closer and closer to him. There was a faint sense of a powerful existence. But before he had the time to look back. Chapter 1545. It was a kiss. It was like a light breeze. But it made Lin Feng's shoulders tremble. His hands turned soft and his neck turned red. F***ck, what are you doing? Kissing you. Yunhu didn't stop because of his anger. Instead, he moved his lips up half an inch and placed it behind his ear. Lin Feng didn't know what expression to make. His waist was hugged from behind and he was about to be kissed again. Who could take it? He was almost getting a reaction from the kiss. Yunhu noticed the change in him. He chuckled softly. It was a little deep and he took a step closer. Lin Feng reached out and pushed him away. He took off his t-shirt and threw it to the side. Don't act like a hooligan in the morning. Hooligan? Yunhu looked at him, his gaze deep. Boss Lin, who is going to come back in 2 days, it shouldn't be a problem for you to face such a kiss. The words Boss Lin successfully made Lin Feng happy. He put on the white shirt, his aura high. Of course it's not a problem. Since it's not a problem, why don't you kiss a little longer? Yunhu had already placed his arm by his side. His right hand was supporting himself against the wardrobe. He tilted his head slightly and with a tilt of his eyes, he kissed Lin Feng. Such a space was more suitable for doing bad things. Even the sound of breathing could be heard clearly. Each sound was louder than the one before. Lin Feng had that feeling again. The air seemed to have been sucked out of him. His feet felt light and his heart was beating so fast that it made him blush. He could hear the sound of clothes rubbing against each other. Lin Feng. You're getting a reaction. That light chuckle was like a fire that was sprinkled over him. It was so hot that Lin Feng couldn't think. Yunhu originally wanted to leave a mark on this person, especially since he was going out to meet a girl. He was very clear about a certain someone's charm. Usually, his face looked like a little puppy. But with his height, long legs and narrow hips, he would be popular on any live streaming app. He was the type that young girls liked. Not to mention the way he looked when he wore a white shirt, a suit and a watch. Yunhu admitted that he was jealous. Hence, she didn't even hold back, and the kiss on Lin Feng's neck was exceptionally deep. Sometimes, Lin Feng felt that it was inconceivable. He was clearly a straight man of steel. How could he have fallen for her seduction so quickly? Did Yunhu secretly learn something behind his back? Or perhaps... Lin Feng took advantage of the gap and raised his eyes, slightly panting. Where did you learn all this from? Does Hatsune know all this? Yunhu paused for a moment. Then he chuckled lightly and placed his right hand on his thigh. Why? Jealous? Eat your sister's vinegar. I was just casually asking. Lin Feng's eyes fluttered. It's the same the last time I saw you. You're starting to go to those kinds of places. I just feel a little unfamiliar. Yunhu lowered his body slightly, as though he was whispering into Lin Feng's ear. Indeed, people often send people to my place and there are many entertainment venues, but I haven't touched any of them. With a cream cake like you around, I don't want to eat cake crumbs. Chapter 1546. Why don't you let me enjoy it now, almighty Lin Feng? Yunhu said, lowering his lids. Only then did Lin Feng realize that his leg had been lifted by this person. He took a step back and was pushed against the wardrobe. Some of the clothes inside slid off the hanger, making noises. It was probably because such a secret space made it easier for the active party to take action. Before Lin Feng could feed the other party, his breath was snatched away once again. This time, the force was much greater than the last time. It was as though he wanted to swallow him whole. Even his breath was hot. It was said that men used their bodies to think. Lin Feng didn't believe it at first. But now he believed it. Because sometimes there was no time to think. It was too hot, too erect, so he wanted the other party to help. Most importantly, Yunhu wanted him to show this side. When he lifted the corner of his lips, there was a hint of blackness. Just meet, no more than an hour. After you're done, call me, I'll wait for you nearby. Even if she's pretty, you can't have a good impression of her. After this ends, delete her WeChat. Yunhu, damn you, is this the time to talk about this? Lin Feng's body was so hot that he just wanted relief. But the person who was controlling him stopped at this moment. Yunhu blocked his hand, his voice calm. If you agree, I'll serve you. You should know that it's better if I help you. F***CK. Lin Feng was going crazy, his handsome face blushing slightly, his breath hot. I agree, just meet. Delete my WeChat when I come back. Yunhu hugged the person who seemed to have been scooped out of the water. He used strength, lowered his lids, and kissed his neck. Only he could see him like this. His emotions were aroused, and his handsome appearance was revealed. Only he could see him. Other people, be it men or women. He couldn't stand it. Who could see him like this? Yunhu lowered his gaze, as though he was saying something in Lin Feng's ear. Lin Feng opened his eyes, and then as though he was released, he leaned back into the wardrobe, the heat still lingering on his body. But because of the other party's breath, the words were extremely clear. I like you, Lin Feng, I like you. It really was. Lin Feng raised his arm and pressed down on his bangs. If that was the case, it wouldn't make sense if he didn't respond. Me too. Yunhu, who was kissing his left shoulder, suddenly paused. His gaze wavered and suddenly became unfathomable. Lin Feng's half-bent leg froze because that thing was too obvious. Hey, it's so early in the morning you. Yunhu pressed him down and didn't move. Instead, he whispered in his ear. You did it on purpose, didn't you? You knew the timing wasn't right. That's why you flirted with me. I'm just replying to you. Lin Feng opened his mouth. Who knows? Did you take some medicine? Chapter 1547. F***CK. Lin Feng interrupted Yunhu. After recovering his strength, he pulled his collar over with one hand. If you dare to do that, I'll cripple you. Yunhu chuckled lightly. I haven't waited for 5 years. Lin Feng wanted to say something. Yunhu glanced over and planted another kiss on his lips. You can do it now if you want. This state is good. Lin Feng dispersed the heat on his body. Good my asteriskes. I haven't pressed it back. Then, should I press it back now? Yunhu stretched his hand over. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Then, he pushed the door open. Lin Feng's entire body froze. Yunhu's reaction was fast. He closed the wardrobe. Then he turned his head. It was Mother Lin, but she didn't enter. She opened the door and said, Go down for dinner. Where's Lin Feng? Isn't he up yet? Yunhu blocked the door and smiled. He's in the bathroom. Mother Lin nodded and said, I made your favorite egg noodles. Yunhu placed one hand behind his back. I'll go wash up and go down immediately. Mama Lin said. Okay. Then, she went downstairs happily. As a strong woman, she didn't cook at home often, but since the children were around, she was willing to cook for herself. Yunhu really went to wash his hands. After he was done, he said to the gloomy Lin Feng behind him, "It's all your stuff." Lin Feng really felt that this person deserved a beating. When he was brushing his teeth, he was thinking about pressing it back. The two of them left the door at the same time. Mother Lin told Yunhu to come over when he was free. Yunhu sat in the front passenger seat and glanced over. I'll come and disturb Godmother often. What do you mean by disturbing? Mother Lin said. It's our home. Lin Feng fastened his seatbelt and interrupted. MH, you've always been the one who kissed me. I'm the one who was picked up. Mother Lin smiled and didn't forget to remind Lin Feng. Speak properly when you meet today. Don't be silly and learn from Yunhu, understand? MH. Lin Feng glanced up and thought for a moment. In the end, he didn't say the words that wouldn't end well. He started the car and didn't talk much along the way. When they got out of the car, Yunhu reached out to press on his right hand. I'll change and come pick you up. I know, hurry up and go in. Lin Feng could sense his uneasiness. Sometimes, he would think that he was pretty impressive to be able to make someone like Yunhu feel uneasy. The location of the meeting was a very high-end coffee shop. Lin Feng was not late. Instead, he arrived early. He ordered 2 drinks and paid the bill in advance. Just as Yunhu had said, he was too eye-catching in his suit and white shirt, especially when his collar was slightly unbuttoned. When he raised his arm to check his watch, he looked even more handsome. This made the girl who had just arrived blush. After taking a deep breath, he said, God Lin. Lin Feng turned around and saw a girl standing there. He smiled and said, Miss Liang, right? Shall we sit down and talk? The girl was very excited. After all, this was not only the closest she had ever been to her Prince Charming, but it was also an opportunity for them to develop into a couple. She had prepared for so long, and now she let her grandpa do the talking. Just for this day. Chapter 1548. The girl stilled, her smile stiff, but she didn't want to give up just like that. She clenched her fists. We'll know after we get to know each other, right? I've really liked you for a long time. I watch all your matches. Since you watch every match, Liang, then you should know who I like. When Lin Feng said this, it was because he knew that Yunhu had been watching their competition and should have some understanding in this area. After all, it wasn't as if no one had paired him and Yunhu together online. The girl's expression changed. Don't tell me that the rumors online are true. You and Almighty Yun, aren't you? Good brothers? We were indeed good brothers in the past, but now we're lovers. Lin Feng's gaze wavered, his expression turning serious. I hope you can keep this a secret. As for the rest, I can't reply to Miss Liang, but thank you for always supporting and liking me. Swoosh. The girl seemed to lose control and stood up from the table. You don't have to thank me, because I won't like you in the future. I really didn't expect you to actually like men. What are you doing? Are you cheating our feelings? Lin Feng finally realized that he had misunderstood something. Miss Liang, you seem to have misunderstood. Forget it. I'll take it as a misunderstanding. The girl grabbed her bag and walked out. Her previous liking was a joke to her. Since he liked guys, why didn't he admit it when his fans asked? He even hoped that she would keep it a secret. He was afraid that his image would crumble after everyone found out about him. The girl couldn't take it anymore, gossiping with her female friend. When Lin Feng had said those words, he hadn't expected what would happen next. He hadn't expected anyone to understand. In the end, he had been too naive. He had become stupid from playing games. That was why he didn't know his own position. Because of her identity, he didn't think it was a big deal. She would look at it rationally. But that wasn't the case. He had realized the problem when Yunhu had come to pick him up. At that time, Lin Feng hadn't been able to lift his spirits, but he hadn't shown it in front of Yunhu. After all, such things would happen frequently in the future. But the outcome was far from what he had imagined. The internet broke the news. A certain famous esports player is obviously gay, but he still went on a blind date. He's obviously cheating. Such a title would naturally attract people's attention. A large number of posts were asking, "Who is it? Who is it?" I really don't dare to say it. I'm afraid that my fans will tear me apart, so I'll just vaguely mention it. Everyone can guess. They used to be mediocre in games, but I don't know how they became a god. They probably relied on their CP to always appear in 2v2 matches, becoming this year's champion team. F***CK, that's impossible. Wind. Cloud. Is it Lin Feng or Yun Hu? My almighty Yun has always been very powerful, alright? Is that Lin Feng? Sounds like it. Impossible. God Lin, would never do such a thing. Then go ask your god Lin whether he is gay or not. What a joke. Actually, I've long wanted to expose this Lin Feng. I heard that he was the one who came up with that thing earlier. That can't be. I always thought Supreme Alliance was good. Supreme Alliance isn't bad, but ever since I found out that he relied on his looks to make a living, I don't like him anymore. Gaming is a competition of skills. Is it about looks? Almighty Lin was obviously joking. Can you guys talk about the same thing? Sure, ask him if he's gay. Such an incident would definitely spread quickly. Even the Qin Group's building was filled with tabloids. Some of the trainees who had long disliked the selection system seized this opportunity. No matter who came to ask, they were full of dissatisfaction. Everyone's wish is to join the best team in the country, but this team appears to be one way in front of everyone, and another way in private. Recruitment doesn't look at skills, but looks. Who asked handsome people to attract more fans? That's fine, but what is this? The team doesn't look like a team at all. It's all personal. He even said that he would give every member a fair chance. Does he really think we don't know? Senior Lin wasn't considered good in the past, but he relied on almighty Yun to get in. How do we feel? Disappointed. Really disappointed. Do you know how Lin Feng feels now? I don't know, he didn't join the team. He's probably thinking about how to do public relations. In reality, some people were wrong. Public relations had always been handled by Feng Yi and not the members of the team. It wasn't that Lin Feng didn't want to make things clear. Feng Yi only told him one sentence. I can't explain it clearly. The atmosphere in the team changed. Even little Mo Bei, who only ate steamed buns every day, could sense it. But it didn't seem to affect her training. Some of the people waiting downstairs had come to interview her. At that time, no one knew that this short-haired child would become the gaming genius Bei that everyone would chase after in the near future. Hence, the person who came didn't even turn on the camera and asked her what she thought about Senior Lin's appearance. These people probably didn't understand little Mo Bei's personality. Little Mo Bei only glanced at the person. She was carrying the keyboard, her face cold and noble. She didn't say a word. Right. She didn't say a word. That was why the people above had the chance to speak. When little Mo Bei heard those words, she retracted her short legs that were originally going up the stairs. She was about to rush over and say something. But she was pulled back by the figure standing at the corner. Under the dusk light, her silver hair and the long curve of her chin could be seen. Her handsome and evil face could be seen. She bent down and placed her finger on her thin lips, gesturing for her to keep quiet. It was almighty Z. She looked very handsome. Little Mo Bei didn't understand. She followed Bo Jiu silently for a period of time before stopping in her tracks. Bo Jiu glanced over and smiled. Do you really want to say something? Mate. Little Mo Bei replied. Chapter 1549. Hence that night, Bo Jiu brought little Mo Bei back to the Qin family. When Qin Mo saw the little figure following behind a certain someone, his hand that was unbuttoning his sleeves paused for a moment. Madame Zhang was delighted. Where did this little handsome boy come from? He looks really good. Little Mo Bei was still carrying her red keyboard. When she heard Madame Zhang's words, the back of her ears turned red. Bo Jiu placed a hand on the little person's shoulder and smiled brightly. Haha, Madame Zhang, Bei Bei is a girl. Little girl? Madame Zhang looked at little Mo Bei again. Look carefully, She is indeed much cuter than those naughty little kids. Right, Bei is very obedient, but her expression is a little cold. She looks just like Brother Mo when he was young, making people want to pinch her. When the little person heard this, she turned her head and saw the person's clear smile. It was very warm. Little Mo Bei wanted to look a little longer. Just then, she saw their captain walking towards them. Even though she was wearing home clothes, her aura was still very strong. Little Mo Bei bowed and called out, "Captain." "Mate," Chin Mo replied faintly. He didn't say anything, but his gaze conveyed some meaning. He was probably telling her not to look at people she shouldn't look at. When little Mo Bei received that gaze, her little face was still expressionless. But in her heart, she was thinking that the seniors were right. Captain's possessiveness towards Almighty Z was very obvious. "Let's go, Bei. Let me observe your gaming habits from a close distance." Bo Jiu still had a lazy smile on her face. Little Mo Bei nodded and followed behind Bo Jiu obediently. When he saw this, Chin Mo narrowed his deep eyes and his long legs followed. Bo Jiu originally wanted to teach Mo Bei alone. She didn't understand why the Almighty followed her in. He sat opposite them. His slender legs were slightly crossed and there was a magazine on them. Bo Jiu looked up and glanced over. She didn't pay much attention and sat beside little Mo Bei, watching her enter the game. The adult and the child seemed to forget themselves when they started doing things. Especially when little Mo Bei understood Bo Jiu's intentions. She reversed her position and used her second skill to charge forward, completing the counterattack. Bo Jiu reached out and caressed her head. "You're so smart. Come, Bei, let's celebrate." Smile. Little Mo Bei hadn't moved. There was one person who couldn't sit still anymore. It was the Almighty. He reached out his hand to hold a certain someone's wrist. "It's time to eat. Aunt Zhang prepared a lot of food for you." The moment Bo Jiu heard about food, her dark eyes lit up. She turned towards the clock hanging on the wall and stretched lazily, her hair moving slightly. "It's already so late, it's indeed time to eat." Little Mo Bei also stood up when she heard that and was planning to leave. Bo Jiu pressed the little person onto the wooden chair. "It's a good time to nourish your body today. You won't grow taller eating steamed buns. Madame Zhang's cooking is really good." Little Mo Bei couldn't reject her idol's passion, and it seemed like the captain didn't say anything. Indeed, Chin Mo didn't care about eating. However, would a certain someone pay too much attention to this little bean? Chin Mo didn't say anything. After all, he had to consider the child's pride. Hence, little Mo Bei watched as Almighty Z was dragged away by the captain to wash her hands. Even during the meal, the captain was the one who placed the chicken wings in Almighty Z's bowl. The usually handsome and devilish Almighty Z seemed to only be in charge of eating. Little Mo Bei didn't expect Almighty Z to be like this at home. However, when Almighty Z was in front of the captain, she was much more relaxed. Even the smile on her face was different. Little Mo Bei didn't know how to describe it. She just felt that the atmosphere was very good. After the meal, the two of them walked into the study room to continue their training. Little Mo Bei felt that the things in the study room didn't match up. Half of the room was filled with books and most of them were related to psychology. On the other side, there were 2 desktop computers and 4 laptops. There were also some unknown models on the floor. Later, when she went to drink water, she found out from Madame Zhang that the Qin family's study room didn't look like this in the past. The captain had emptied half the room for Almighty Z so that she could store her things. Little Mo Bei had never come into contact with matters of the heart. But when she was in middle school, she had seen her classmates having feelings for each other. She felt that the best kind of love was what the captain had for Almighty Z. He was such a cold and abstinent person, but he allowed another person to occupy his private area. Even the things placed in the study room didn't match the overall style. The captain would also allow Almighty Z to do as she pleased. Even the office table had candies. Little Mo Bei lowered her eyes. As a fan, she knew that Almighty Z liked to hold a lollipop in her mouth even when she was playing games. This candy should be prepared for Almighty Z. Because little Mo Bei was distracted, someone almost caught up to her in the game. Her mouse moved slightly. She touched Bo Jiu's arm. That was when she realized that Almighty Z had fallen asleep. Just as little Mo Bei was hesitating whether she should speak, the captain walked over. The captain, who was sitting on the sofa, had already walked over. He bent over and carried Almighty Z. He looked at her calmly. That's all for today's training. If you have any problems in the future, you can look for me. Captain, do you feel that I'm taking up Almighty Z's time? Little Mo Bay mustered up her courage when she asked this question. Qin Mo glanced at the little person and said calmly, "It has nothing to do with time. You are taking up my time." Even though little Mo Bay had a poker face, she didn't know how to describe her expression at this moment. Qin Mo stood there with the person in his arms, his back facing her. His legs were slender and he glanced sideways. Even if she doesn't teach you, you should be able to fight 1 against 3. The genius newbie of the Supreme Alliance can't be called that for nothing. Mate, little Mo Bay replied and carried her backpack. I will do my best. There is a document on the table. Qin Mo's tone was calm. Other than the official contract, there are some problems with your playing style. After reading it, don't look for her. When you are in the team, make her drink more water, understand? Little Mo Bay understood what her captain meant. Anyway, he didn't want her to look for Almighty Z privately. Then, when they were in the team, she would help him control Almighty Z. From that day onwards, little Mo Bay was in charge of watching Bojo drink water. Of course, this was all in the future. And in the Qin family. Qin Mo had just bent over to place Bojo on the bed when she woke up. Her silver hair was a little messy from sleep. She reached out to rub her left eye lazily. I fell asleep? Where is Bei Bei? Chapter 1550. The way he addressed her. Bojo didn't need to look at his addictive face to know that the Almighty was jealous again. She had assumed that the Almighty would use the excuse of bringing someone home for a meal to bully her. Unexpectedly, he pulled the blanket over her and pulled her into his arms, his voice calm. We'll talk after you wake up. He was coaxing her to sleep. Bojo really wanted to sleep since they were about to start. It didn't seem like her to read until 11 p.m. She was too hardworking. Bojo moved in Qin Mo's arms. Qin Mo arched a brow, his handsome face inching closer. You don't want to sleep? Then do something else. Bojo shut her eyes immediately. I just wanted to ask old Fox Feng how he is going to resolve Flower Lin's matter. He isn't going to resolve it. Qin Mo's gaze landed on one point, his eyes darkening. Lin Feng will announce his retirement tonight. Compared to what others say, the Lin family's opinion is more important to him. Bojo stilled. Retirement? Today? He was going to retire, but he brought it forward by less than a month. Qin Mo's gaze was calm. This time, he has made up his mind and probably won't be so reluctant. It isn't a bad thing since he has to take some time to resolve his family's problems. MH, Bojo replied, remaining silent. Sleep. Qin Mo lowered his lids, planting a kiss on her head. That was when Bojo realized that Lin Feng's retirement might be painful for her, but for the Almighty, it had a different meaning. They had worked hard together for 3 years. From Supreme Alliance's weakest point to where they were now. The people from the same generation as the Almighty were also retiring one after another. Bojo had expected the people around her to bring it up. But she hadn't expected it to be in such a manner. Lin Feng returned home late that day. He wasn't avoiding it, but he had to settle his other matters before meeting his mother and grandmother. Hence, not long after the incident, he had planned to tell Feng Yi that he wanted to retire. That was how Qin Mo knew about the news. As a manager, Feng Yi didn't agree with Lin Feng's decision to retire. If you choose to retire now, you won't be able to explain yourself. Think whatever you want. To be honest, it's a little annoying. Ever since I joined Supreme Alliance, it has been going back and forth. When Captain lost his memory, they told him not to come back because it would affect the competition. I didn't want to continue playing. It has nothing to do with anyone. It's just something I can't figure out. In the past, when esports wasn't accepted, I didn't feel this way. At that time, I hoped for the industry to be recognized. For this thought, I would often do stupid things. The all-star era of esports is coming. My personality isn't suited to be a public figure. This era isn't suitable for me. Besides, my condition is deteriorating. With that, Lin Feng paused. You should have realized it a long time ago. Feng Yi didn't reply immediately. Instead, he turned to light a cigarette. After a few puffs, he tugged his collar open. This was the first time he revealed a tired smile, but it didn't change his aura. Yes, it isn't just you, the entire Supreme Alliance probably can't adapt. Young Master Qin has some thoughts in this regard. What thoughts? Lin Feng had a feeling the answer wasn't one he wanted to hear. Feng Yi glanced over, smoke swirling around him. Disband Supreme Alliance. Lin Feng froze. When did you start having this thought? We've discussed it before. Feng Yi seemed much more relaxed. Some of the analysis isn't wrong. There is a gap in Supreme Alliance. Logically speaking, all of you are considered old almighties in the industry. It is normal for you to retire, even young Master Qin. He can only last for a year, but a year is too short. Who will replace Uncle Yin? Who will replace you? And who can replace young Master Qin? Lin Feng opened his mouth, momentarily at a loss for words. I never expected Captain to have such thoughts. In a certain sense, his mission has long been completed. He didn't mention it because he was waiting for everyone to bring it up first. Feng Yi tilted his head, flicking the cigarette in his hand. Supreme Alliance has been on the decline since a long time ago. Many teams brought up many conditions, be it money or resources, just to poach him. Fortunately, he is Qin Mo and the Qin family doesn't lack money. He doesn't have to be like the other professional players, unable to make a decision. He stayed here and never thought of leaving Supreme Alliance. In the end, when the funds ran out, he invested. Feng Yi chuckled lightly. Actually, that person's motive for joining the professional team was very simple. He said that the person he was looking for liked to play games, so when he stood on the professional stage, he would always be seen by that person. Even until now, there are still people doubting his intentions for joining the industry, thinking that he didn't really love the industry. But so what? In my heart, he is the most qualified captain of Supreme Alliance. Lin Feng, do you remember what he said when you first joined the team? Lin Feng's fingers stilled. I remember, it wasn't easy for Supreme Alliance to recruit. Yes, it wasn't easy. Firstly, I didn't have any connections. The Feng family's connections were all in the entertainment industry. Secondly, he was still a high school student. Other than him, Supreme Alliance didn't have any outstanding members. Compared to other big teams, they weren't even worth mentioning, but at that time he told Yun Hu and me to join Supreme Alliance and that he would lead you into the National League. Lin Feng finished Feng Yi's sentence, a faint warmth in his heart. Feng Yi chuckled. Isn't it cool? Besides, regardless of what he promised you or me, he did it. Lin Feng lowered his lids slightly. Yes, he did it. Chapter 1551. Feng Yi stubbed out the cigarette on his finger. He stood there, dressed in a well-ironed suit, as if he had never changed. All right, let's first announce your retirement. This kind of decision was received by almost everyone in the battle team, including Yin Wuyao, who was watching Coco and the others eat instant noodles. The atmosphere quietened down in an instant. It seemed like it had reached this point. They wouldn't show it no matter what they encountered. Just silence. Coco was the same. Yin Wuyao was the only one who spoke. I wanted to talk to Feng Yi about my retirement. It would be better to announce it at the same time. Coco's hand that was holding the plastic fork paused, then he replied, MH. Shui Yaoyao buried her entire face, probably worried about what expression she would reveal. Feng Shang swiped his phone, his fingers tightening. Yin Wuyao lit a cigarette. That's normal. Even if he knew it was normal, he would have thought of it. But it was still a little hard to accept. The news had already been sent out. In an instant, good and bad comments came flooding in. Some said he couldn't bear to. Some said Lin Feng had a guilty conscience. The truth was just as Feng Yi had predicted. But regardless of the voices, at this moment, it didn't matter to Lin Feng. But things like snowballs would get bigger and bigger as they rolled. They started to explain what Lin Feng had done. Those who were gay were the first to be attacked. The rest were additional revelations. There wasn't a need to verify their authenticity. There were many fans standing below the company, just wanting an explanation. The media came as well, knowing that today was the day Supreme Alliance would confirm the new members. Many trainees were waiting for this battle. Of course, they wanted to interview Lin Feng the most. No matter what Lin Feng said, it would be a topic. It was a pity Lin Feng didn't appear. Lin Feng wasn't worried about whether people would interview him or not. He was kneeling in front of the Lin family, looking at the figure sitting on the sofa, saying, "Mom, I'm sorry, I won't be able to let you have grandchildren in the future." Mother Lin had always been a professional dresser. At this moment, she took a deep breath. She didn't know how to describe her emotions since last night. It wasn't that Hu Zi wasn't good. She had watched him grow up. But she didn't understand. How did things turn out like this? I remember that you like girls. Feng, can't you change it? I know that you and Hu Zi grew up together and have a good relationship, but you are both too young. It is very likely that you will recognize the current relationship as something else. You. As Mama Lin said this, she met Lin Feng's eyes. How could she not understand her son? He was saying that he couldn't change. I can't accept it. Mama Lin reached out to support her head. Let's not talk about whether I can accept it or not. After your father passed away, your grandmother has been waiting for you to get married. I've been helping you hide this incident. I didn't let some of the Lin family's clients tell your grandmother, but how long can it be hidden? I'm sorry. It seemed like Lin Feng had nothing else to say other than this sentence. Mama Lin stood up. I have to go to the company. The Liang family is very angry. We have to renegotiate the contract. I'll go talk to him. Perhaps because he had been kneeling for too long, Lin Feng's long legs were a little bent when he stood up. Chapter 1552. Lin Feng's fingers paused and he didn't say anything. Looking at her son, Mother Lin took a deep breath. I'll tell them that my son went on a blind date to make it clear to Miss Liang that they aren't suitable and that he didn't want to lie. However, the Liang family can even reveal their personal secrets. In the future, the Lin family won't share any resources with the Liang family. Lin Feng's body trembled and he raised his head. His eyes flickered and he said in a hoarse voice, Mom, you're so handsome. Don't be happy too early. I still can't accept you and Hu Zi. Mother Lin cried. Why do the two of you make the family worry so much? Lin Feng was most afraid of his mother crying. He was flustered for a while before he reached out and hugged her. That's all. I won't let you worry about me anymore. Mother Lin didn't say anything else. Lin Feng also knew that it would take a long time for him to accept this. He also knew that he had a good mother. He was born in a very happy family. It was just that this was too hard to accept. If it was someone he didn't know, it would at most be a matter of sexual orientation. But once he becomes your dearest and most beloved, how could he accept it? It was because he was open-minded that he knew that this path was too difficult. Many people said that men and women were true love. But in reality, it was rare for men to have a sense of responsibility. Even if they had a fixed boyfriend, they would find someone else to play with. Needless to say, what would happen after feelings disappeared? Mother Lin wasn't afraid that the two of them would fall in love. She was afraid that they wouldn't love each other anymore. When Lin Feng heard this, he lowered his gaze. I won't mess around and I won't find someone else to play with. If he feels that it's not fresh, then we'll break up. Even if it's hard, I won't regret taking this path. After listening to these words, Mama Lin completely understood that nothing would change. At the same time as a mother, she felt that the child in front of her had really grown into a man who could bear the burden no matter what. After the mother and son finished talking, Lin Feng planned to go to Grandma Lin's place. Grandma Lin still lived in the old courtyard house. There was a huge locust tree in the courtyard. In Granny Lin's words, she didn't want to leave this place. Firstly, the elders were all here. Secondly, if she stayed here, she would always be reminded of the time when she was young. Lin Feng basically came here every day. Today, Grandma Lin was still waiting for her grandson to peel oranges for her. That brat from the Yun family had arrived. Granny Lin looked up. What's going on? Are they fighting again? There was a slight injury on Yun Hu's forehead, but it wasn't from a fight. His father had smashed it with the jade pichio placed at home in a fit of rage. There was no fight. Yun Hu smiled. In order to let Grandma Lin see him more clearly, He bent one of his long legs and squatted down. Do you want me to peel an orange for you? Granny Lin chuckled and said, Did Fenger cause trouble outside again and asked you to come over to take over? This time, it's not him. It's me. Yunhu peeled the orange and lowered his eyes. My dad thinks that I did something wrong and kept scolding me for being a brat. I thought about it and felt that it was indeed wrong. That's why I came to apologize to you. You have always been like this since you were young. Your father is also muddle-headed. They have been staying up there for too long, so their tempers have gotten bad. Your grandpa Lin used to be like this too. He would always take a bamboo stick and hit Fenger, but you were always the one stopping him. He. Your grandpa Lin was so angry that he made the two of you stand against the wall together. Do you still remember that? Grandma Lin patted Yunhu's head and said, How could you cause trouble? I remember. Yunhu stretched out his hand and passed the peeled orange to the old lady. Grandma always spoke up for us. Granny Lin took a bite of the orange. It was very sweet. At that time, everyone in the courtyard said that I spoiled my grandson too much. I think that the two of you are very good. Yunhu passed a piece of tissue to the old lady. But this time, it's a little different. I really caused trouble. I pulled Lin Feng along to do something crazy. Grandma, do you remember when we were young? You asked us what kind of partner we wanted. I didn't say anything at that time because I was worried that I couldn't afford it. Now, I want to ask Grandma for someone. Yunhu paused for a moment. Grandma, can you give Lin Feng to me? Granny Lin wasn't an educated person. After all, they were all like this at their age. But at this point, Granny Lin understood what Yunhu was trying to say and what he was trying to say. The orange in her hand fell and rolled on the ground 3 times. Granny Lin paused for a moment before saying, Your dad should hit you. Yunhu grunted in acknowledgement. Granny Lin was a little anxious. But you are both boys. You and Fenger, if you are just playing, you haven't. Grandma, you should know that I've liked him since I was young. Yunhu's voice was very steady. He maintained his half-squatting posture. Granny Lin didn't say anything. After an unknown period of time, the card game outside the courtyard seemed to have been set up. Granny Lin then looked at his face again. I want to wait for my grandson to tell me personally. You can go back first. Yunhu lowered his voice. Grandma, I came here because I knew that he would come to talk to you about this. But if he were to tell you about this, he would definitely do a lot of thinking. He would definitely feel uncomfortable. It hasn't been easy for him recently. I think it's better for me to explain this matter. Firstly, if Grandma is really angry, you can vent your anger on me first. When he comes, you won't be so angry. Secondly, this matter is entirely my responsibility. He could have lived a normal life, but because of me, he has embarked on this path. When Granny Lin heard that, if you are really angry, you can vent your anger on me first. She thought about the two of them when they were young. It was always the kid from the Yun family who stood in front of her grandson and got hit by her husband. At that time, her husband would always feel embarrassed. After all, he was hitting someone else. But anyone who saw them would know that these two children were really good friends. When her husband passed away, Granny Lin thought about it. Even if the Lin family retreated, many people would still appear. But Yunhu wouldn't change. As expected, it was usually her grandson who came first and Yunhu who came later. The things she ate and used were never short. Even the grandson of the Zhang family next door couldn't do this. Every time he came back, other than eating a meal, he wouldn't even touch his grandmother for a while. These two children always asked her to chase them away. However, at that time, Granny Lin thought that something had happened to these two children. After all, they were always at odds. Now, it seemed that it wasn't that they didn't want to take responsibility or let someone down. They both wanted to come over, so they came to her to confess. Granny Lin looked at Yunhu. If I don't agree, will I become a stubborn old woman? Yunhu's gaze paused for a moment before he smiled. You are Lin Feng's and my grandmother, not a stubborn old woman. You have been smart since you were young. Granny Lin was still worried. Yunhu understood what the old lady meant. I won't use my intelligence on him. When the time comes, I will help him to deal with others. Sometimes, people were like children when they were old. Who knows if what you said is true or not? Then Granny, watch me. Don't let me do anything that will let him down. Yunhu lowered his head and started peeling oranges. Granny Lin looked at his unmoving posture and sighed. I have always wanted a great-grandson. That's a little difficult. Yunhu and Lin Feng had completely different styles. His words were always practical. But it's not impossible. I have already contacted my friends in the medical field. They can find a surrogate. Surrogate? Granny Lin asked. Is that okay? Yunhu's voice was very calm. Granny, don't worry. Surrogate pregnancy is very common now. As long as both parties are willing, it's not a big deal. I have already arranged everything and sent the things to the other party. After saying this, he looked up. It's Lin Feng's surname. The first child's surname is Lin. The moment Lin Feng entered, he heard this sentence. He didn't walk closer, but he knew what Yunhu had done. He was still holding a bag of fruits in his hand. He stood there just like that. When Granny Lin saw her grandson, she didn't say much. Her eyes were red as she said, Rascal, come over here. Lin Feng walked over and copied Yunhu's posture. He half squatted beside his grandmother. Granny Lin looked at the two of them. I don't know anything else, but I do know one thing. Since the two of you have decided to be together, you have to live a good life. Don't be so scheming, understand? Okay. I will. Lin Feng was still a little confused. He didn't expect Granny to agree so quickly. But he still had to be punished. Granny Lin asked Lin Feng to accompany her these days. They went to the temple and then to his grandfather's grave. In this way, the two of them really couldn't go to the club anymore. It was about time. They also realized that the internal selection competition of the Supreme Alliance was about to begin. It was probably because too many things had happened recently. So the competition this time was different from last year. Compared to last year's grand occasion. This year, the Supreme Alliance didn't release any information about the contestants to the media. All the people could see was their game IDs. The core of this competition was to choose the 3 most qualified people from the trainees to become the official members of the Supreme Alliance. However, the voices asking for a reasonable explanation from the Supreme Alliance were already louder than the voices for the competition. There were also some people saying, the Supreme Alliance isn't too old. They used to be so arrogant, but now they don't even dare to say a word. Ha! I heard that they only choose people based on their looks because it's easy to gain fans. This competition probably isn't worth watching. I really admire them for using the competition for public relations. After seeing so many things, I'm completely disappointed in the Supreme Alliance. I blame myself for being blind. Chapter 1553. The more it was like this, the more valuable it was for an interview. Someone said that they wanted to give everyone the truth. That was why they waited below the team. This situation wouldn't change even if Lin Feng didn't appear. Originally, Supreme Alliance didn't allow some people to enter. But the 3 trainees who had been interviewed felt that they were protecting their fans and it wasn't a problem to invite some people in. Moreover, if they weren't guilty, why wouldn't the team face them? This match would be broadcasted live. The team members were all there. They were discussing the criteria to select the people who could become team members this time. First, it was the ability to cooperate with the team. Of course, the most important thing was the individual ability. Every team needed someone like the king of solo challenges. After selecting such a person, he would integrate into the team and improve their teamwork. This was a standard that the team would use when choosing members. But it was obvious that the 3 trainees didn't think so. They felt that the team was obviously biased in their selection. This wasn't the philosophy that Supreme Alliance had promoted previously. Didn't they say that a team was more important? Why were they always lying? The 3 trainees discussed it for a while and told the fans they brought in about the incident. The fans wanted an explanation. After hearing this, they were disappointed, sad and a little angry. The trainees also felt the same way. If they were to follow this selection standard, the person who would get first place would definitely be that arrogant bae. Why did they have to be suppressed by a little kid? Because she knew how to make Spade Z happy. Speaking of this, they were already disappointed in Spade Z. This time, their goal was clear. After working hard for so many years, they couldn't be eliminated just like that. Since the 3 of them were a team, they would come up with a strategy. As long as they could pull the others to the last place. As time passed, the competition was starting. But at this moment, someone posted photos of Supreme Alliance on the internet, saying that there was a problem with the competition system. When Bo Jio and Coco walked over, the few people who had entered were still taking photos. Bo Jio stuffed a hand into her pocket and glanced down. She asked the assistant beside her, "Which department are they from?" "The internal department doesn't allow photos." "This I don't know." The assistant was confused. "I'll check." Bo Jio glanced over, her gaze landing on their faces. She said slowly, "There's no need to check, they aren't internal personnel." At this moment, those people saw Bo Jio and Coco. He turned his gaze over and walked over as well. The assistant wanted to stop him. But it was obvious that they couldn't stop it. If they called the security guards, then there would probably be more comments on the internet. For example, they didn't cherish their fans, or the security guard of their idol pushed them, etc. Such news was innumerable. If it had been Bo Jio, she would have ignored him and walked away. But she was representing Supreme Alliance now, so she couldn't act according to her personality. It was quite depressing. Bo Jio stood there and didn't say a word. She lifted the corners of her lips, and when her gaze landed on the screens of their phones, there was a hint of mischief in her eyes. He probably understood the meaning behind this smile. Chapter 1554. Bo Jio tilted her head. The contents of the competition changed? When did that happen? What happened to the team spirit? Now, it's an individual. Bo Jio glanced up. All of you seem to have misunderstood Supreme Alliance. Supreme Alliance's recruitment principle has always been, "Come, take a look at me, a monster that can kill in the game, or someone like the Almighty who can carry the entire game. That's what we want to see the most. If not, what's the point of the competition? We can just play at home." "You. Forget it." He didn't want to continue. "So many things have happened and you don't even know how to reflect." Bo Jio smiled. Coco wanted to say something, but she stopped him. She wanted them to leave. But Coco knew it was useless. Compared to this, Bo Jio was more concerned about who brought the outsiders in. When he looked to the side, he saw 3 figures not far away. So that was it. Bo Jio turned and was about to take a step forward. Just then she heard the person behind her say, "Do you know how to remain silent about Lin Feng's matter?" Bo Jio stuffed her hands into her pockets. Lin Feng has retired. What else can he do other than remain silent? That's amazing, pushing the blame to us. If he didn't do anything wrong, he would have retired. Bo Jio lifted her lips. No matter what we say, they will misunderstand. What's wrong with remaining silent? I will let more people know your true colors. Bo Jio tilted her head and took another step forward. Whatever. At this moment, another person shouted, "We've been supporting you for so long. What exactly are we supporting? Are you sure Supreme Alliance won't die with him around?" "I'm not sure." Bo Jio's voice was calm. "But since we have met him, I can introduce him to you. My disciple Bei is said to have entered the team because of her looks. Indeed, we like her a lot. I didn't choose her to inherit the Supreme Alliance. She should take on whatever responsibilities she can. The Supreme Alliance has never been a team that binds anyone. That's why you are so irresponsible towards Supreme Alliance." Bo Jio didn't reply. This time, she really left. However, just as he turned the corner, he saw a small figure. The little figure wasn't wearing her private clothes today. Instead, she was wearing the Supreme Alliance's training uniform. As usual, she was carrying her school bag with a red keyboard in it. In the past, she was always expressionless, and Coco would pinch her face whenever he saw her, saying that she had facial paralysis. Now, the little figure was actually smiling, and his ears were red. Coco pretended to be frightened. He pulled Bo Jio and said, "Big Spade, hurry and check if little Mo Bei has a fever. This child keeps smiling. F***CK. I always thought she couldn't smile." Bo Jio was helpless. "Everyone smiles, all right? Why are you so agitated?" F***CK, you're too calm. Take your phone and take a photo of little Mo Bei." Coco hugged his rabbit so he couldn't take his phone. Hence, he stuffed the rabbit into Mo Bei's arms and took out his phone. I have to send it to Lin Feng and Uncle. Little Mo Bei is so cute when she smiles. She's so fierce when she kills people. Is her personality so cute? Bo Jiu reached out and caressed her head. She was smiling. She thought to herself, that's because you haven't seen the Almighty's smile when he was young. He was even cuter and made people want to hug him. Chapter 1555. Bo Jiu paused for a moment before lowering her lids and smiling. Her black earrings shimmered, carrying a mischievous aura. I've been teaching you for so long. I'm already your master. Of course, you have to treat me seriously. When little Mo Bei heard this, the back of her ears turned even redder. Her little face was filled with seriousness. I will work hard and defeat them. Go ahead. Bo Jiu reached out to adjust his collar. Coco watched as little Mo Bei carried the keyboard and walked away. He turned his head and said, Why do I feel that the disciple you taught isn't like you? Little Spade, your facial expressions are still very rich. I can't see any emotions from little Mo Bei at all. Instead, she looks a little like Captain, especially little Mo Bei's fighting style. Without saying a word, she can crush the opponent. She's so fierce. Captain too. Bo Jiu glanced over, her lips lifting. Brother Mo has indeed taught her before. I wonder what kind of results she will be able to achieve after combining our playstyles. Coco was shocked. You've learned everything? How is that possible? Bo Jiu smiled. Little Mo Bei has her own way of playing. I can only give her some guidance based on her experience. Why do I always feel that when you smile, someone will be in trouble? Coco opened his mouth and bit the rabbit's ear in his arms. Bo Jiu stuffed a hand into her pocket, her silver hair moving. That must be your imagination. I'm just looking forward to my obedient disciple's adorable style. Killing as soon as the battle begins. Isn't this kind of fighting style cute? Bo Jiu's eyes curved into crescent moons. The word, cute, depends on who uses it. It has nothing to do with the way you play. Coco felt that he really shouldn't provoke Little Spade in the future. A person who could take down the captain was truly terrifying. The competition had yet to begin. The current members of Supreme Alliance were already seated there. Except for some necessary personnel. He was one of the contestants this time. There were a total of 4 teams with 20 people. There were contestants who had passed the closed beta test. There were also high-ranking players who were chosen by Supreme Alliance to participate. First, 4-2. In other words, the first round would be a team battle. The top 4 of the winning team and the MVP of the losing team, a total of 10 people would enter the finals. There was nothing wrong with the competition system. The first group battle was a test of teamwork. In the free-for-all mode after the finals, other than himself, the other 9 people were all enemies. It was a test of personal ability. A player who was the MVP of every match would directly become a professional esports player. It was indeed different from before. But it was even more perfect. It wasn't like what the rumors said. However, when it came to the competition system, different people had different views. Those who knew the ropes would know that this kind of competition system was more inclined to select talents. The 4 temporary teams entered the arena. The first group would compete first. The second group's competition. This time, Mo Bei wasn't on the opposing side of the 3 trainees. Because of the lottery numbers. They were even on the same team. But even so, the performance of the 3 trainees could be seen with a single glance. Everyone knew that Mo Bei was best at being an assassin. However, one of them chose the assassin position as soon as he entered the field. Even Coco, the young master of a rich family, wanted to say, F***ck, like Lin Feng. What's going on? When those 3 were practicing, they had never fought against an assassin. Even though they were all trainees of the Supreme Alliance. The 3 trainees thought that they were not valued. In reality, from the Supreme Alliance's point of view, every trainee who participated in the internal testing was their future fresh blood. It was impossible for them not to analyze the position and data that everyone was good at. It wasn't like what the 3 trainees thought. But there was one point. Good people needed special treatment. Such a normal problem. From the perspective of the 3 trainees, it was because Mo Bei knew how to please Spade Z. Then there was nothing to talk about. After all, sometimes a genius liked this point. It was human nature. Moreover, this genius was still wholeheartedly focused on esports. Bojo liked this kind of person. She wasn't a coward when she entered the game. She fought fiercely and fiercely. After the game, she would practice seriously. She wouldn't slack off or have any other thoughts. After the incident, the media wouldn't only interview those 3 people. The other teams wouldn't only poach those 3 people. Bei's results were displayed here. Even if no one knew who Bei was. But there were many calls to Mo Bei. There must have been people who offered conditions to Mo Bei. Even when she was at the Qin family, Bojo saw little Mo Bei holding a phone that was given as a gift. She lowered her head and sent a message. She glanced over casually and saw a sentence. "I'm sorry, I won't leave the Supreme Alliance. It has nothing to do with money." She replied quickly. "Bei, you should really reconsider. I can guarantee you that even though we are still a distance away from Supreme Alliance, in 3 years, no more than 3 years, we will definitely be the best team in the industry. In terms of development prospects, I think you are more suitable for our team." "That's right." Su Yu's eyes lit up. "Your team doesn't have a captain or Almighty Z. You aren't the Supreme Alliance." After sending this message, that child acted as though nothing had happened and continued to ask her how she could become the first in terms of finances in the shortest time possible. Earning money had always been simple for Bojo. It had probably started from that time. Bojo had the thought of taking in a disciple. But it was obvious. The 3 trainees didn't understand where they were lacking. Was it just in terms of skills? Not really. It could be seen from the character they chose this time. They were intentionally suppressing and ostracizing Mo Bei. No matter how much they said, they expressed how much they liked this industry. They just wanted to pull Mo Bei down so that the person who was the biggest threat to them wouldn't have any chance of advancing. If you don't fight in the jungle, little Mo Bei, what else can you do? Feng Shang had already begun to practice his stuttering, so now he could only spit out a few words at a time. Rao Rong had experienced something similar in the past, but he had never thought that such a thing would happen in the Supreme Alliance. He only laughed mockingly. "I really don't like this kind of method." You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.